Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you for everyone for signing in on time. We'll intro for a few minutes in case we have people in the process of signing in. And this is the Small Business Development Center's webinar on Startup Checklist. I'm a business advisor with the Maine Small Business Development Centers, and this session is designed to familiarize you with our startup checklist. Whether that's a small shop or a food business, trades, or even a service business, or something you're running from your home, this startup checklist can help you lay a solid foundation to help you launch your business successfully. This webinar is part of an ongoing series, and we try to revisit this material a few times a year. We're going to walk through our revised checklist. So by the end of the webinar, you'll have a strategy on how to launch your business in Maine, and you'll know how to connect with a team of professionals in the Maine SBDC. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat, and we'll leave some time to address those as we go. I'm Dan McDonald, and with the Maine SBDC, as I mentioned, and my position is hosted in Eastport by the Northern Maine Development Commission. I enjoy being part of the team that helps these small businesses across the whole state. I've got experience in leadership, entrepreneurship, operations management, and about 10 years in each of those. I feel fortunate to have found a place advising businesses on the Maine Small Business Development Center's team. I do have a couple colleagues on the call as well. I have Peter, who's going to be helping us in the chat as that comes up, and then Aaron is in the background. If something glitches, he's going to help us with that. This webinar is being recorded, and the slides will be emailed after our presentation. Please keep yourself on mute until the end and submit questions into the chat, and we'll go through them towards the end of the webinar. Introduction to the Maine SBDC. Maine SBDC provides business advising and training to help entrepreneurs be successful in their small businesses. We do not offer legal advice or take the place of your accountant. We do maintain a list of professionals that have served our clients well. Our goal is to teach you to fish. We want to give you confidence to navigate the challenges and rewards of business ownership. And Aaron's going to launch a poll. We're going to get some information and some feedback from you. We're going to start the poll and see where everybody's at with their business planning. And some of the categories are, I want to start a business, but I don't know what type yet. Or I have an idea, but don't know where to start. I'm making sales, but not an official or legal business yet. I think I'm in business, but want to make sure I'm not missing anything. And then we have the other category that usually catches a few too. So if you don't mind, drop your answers in the poll. Okay, so we do have two that they're making sales, but not official business yet. And then we have one that has a business idea, but don't know where to start. I think this is going to be really beneficial for you today. I think I'm in business, but want to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. Yeah, that's a very common one. And then the other category caught a few as well. We got three there. So I think the webinar is going to really help prepare everybody today and get people pointed in the right direction. All right, thanks for taking time on that. We're going to close the poll.
Yeah, poll's closed.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Got that. Okay, so the purpose of this webinar in the slide outlines the key areas we'll cover today. Think of it as a roadmap for starting your business in Maine. And we start off with market research. Before you invest time and money, you'll need to know if there's a demand for your product. We'll talk about how to gather insights from potential customers. We'll also talk about your business plan. Your business plan is a blueprint and it combines your narrative and your numbers. It's essential for clarity and for securing financing. Help you understand what it means to choose your entity type, deciding whether to be a sole proprietor or an LLC or corporation. It impacts your taxes and your liability. We'll discuss the pros and cons of some of those. And naming your business name and where you operate matter for branding and compliance often. We'll cover common challenges and zoning considerations. Insurance is another big one. Protect your business and stay compliant. We'll review what coverage and permits you might need. And show me the money. It comes down to financing. Financing is critical. We'll look at sources of funding and how to project cash flows realistically. Legal, from contracts to trademarks, legal considerations can be ignoring. We'll highlight when you should seek professional advice. Taxes, understanding income, sales, payroll taxes, they're all key. We'll share tips for budgeting and compliance. And building your team with employees. If you plan to hire, you'll need to know the rules for classifications, payroll, and workplace policies. We'll wrap up the session. You'll have a clear checklist and know how to connect with a Maine SBDC advisor. And how to use the checklist. So we use the checklist. I use the checklist with pretty much every client I work with, and it's a guide. It's not a rigid sequence. Some steps may overlap or happen out of order on your business type and situation. For example, the situation might be where you get the ball rolling on 2 or 3 of these steps, and then you revisit them when progress is made on those. Other times people like to focus on one step at a time. So the list is flexible and can be a big help to get your business started and pointed in the right direction. Key is to understand all pieces and how they fit together so you can move forward confidently. And we are going to start the list with market research. And why is market research important? Market research is important. It helps you to examine feasibility before investing time and money. It ensures there's real demand for your product or service and helps you plan appropriately. There's primary and secondary research. Primary research is information you gather directly from potential customers, surveys, interviews, focus groups. Secondary research uses existing data, industry reports, government statistics, and competitor analysis. How do you do it? For primary research, you got to get out there and talk to your customers, your potential customers, and run surveys or test concepts in small ways. For secondary research, use online resources, industry databases, and reports. Your SBDC advisor can help with tools like SBDC Net and Vertical IQ for industry-specific data. Don't rely on the internet alone. Getting out there and talking to real people gives you insights you can't find online, like what they value most and what they're willing to pay and what problems they need solved. I often suggest somebody entering the market to observe competitors as well, just to see how many cups of coffee a shop can make in a day, or how many cars are going to get through that car wash, just to see how that's functioning. In your business plan, sometimes this can be a little overwhelming for people at first until they work with an advisor. But now, what is the plan? And why is it important? A business plan is your roadmap for starting and growing your business. It combines your vision with practical details and goals and strategies and financial projections. It's important because it helps you clarify your ideas, identify potential challenges, and communicate your plan to lenders, investors, and partners. Most plans include an executive summary, company description, market analysis, marketing and sales strategy, operations plan, and financial projections. Some plans look different, and sometimes it's because of the audience you're writing the plan for. Your plan may vary depending on its purpose. A lender wants a detailed financials, while an internal plan might focus more on strategy and operations. Will help you tailor your plan to your audience. I encourage you to meet with an SBDC advisor before jumping into one of these templates. Meet with a business advisor. They can help you avoid common mistakes and make sure your plan is realistic and effective. Choosing your entity. And I have a lot of questions about this with client sessions too, and so we'll try to cover some of this for you. It says common entity types. I'll discuss the four main types that we work with that I see. And the first one is a sole proprietorship. That's a simple structure. It's easy to start, but you'll have the most personal liability in this entity. There's a partnership. Two or more owners share profits and responsibilities. Liability can still be personal unless it's structured as a limited partnership. The limited liability company offers liability protection and flexible taxation. It's been popular for small businesses. Corporation, more complex, provides strong liability protection, but can have stricter compliance and possible double taxation. The implications of choosing an entity, your choice affects two big things, your taxation and your liability. Your liability is how much personal risk you can take on if the business faces lawsuits or debt. Taxation is whether income is taxed once, and that's called pass-through, or twice. You can be taxed at a corporate level and as a personal income tax as well. Consult with professionals. We strongly recommend talking to both accountants and attorneys before deciding. Accountants will help you focus on tax efficiency. Attorneys focus on legal protection and compliance. Sometimes their advice conflicts because they have different priorities. So weigh both perspectives. In naming your business, and a common question I get is, what is a DBA? And a DBA stands for doing business as. It's a way for a business to operate under a name that's different from its legal entity name. For example, if your LLC is registered as Smith Enterprises LLC, but you want to market as Smith's Coffee, you would find and file a DBA. Entity names and public names. Remember, the name you register for your entity, like an LLC or corporation, is not necessarily the same name that customers will know you by. Your public-facing name can be different, and that's where DBA comes in. Protecting your name. You can protect your business name from being copied by filing for a trademark. This is a federal process and can be expensive. So weigh the cost against the benefit for your business. And your business location is another big decision. You can rent or you can lease the space that you're going to need. You can even buy the property or operate from home. A lot of small businesses start right in a garage. Each option has pros and cons depending on your business type and your budget. Before choosing a location, think about what's most important to your customers: parking availability, geographic convenience, the flow of traffic, visibility, accessibility. Always check with your city or town on zoning regulations before committing. Some areas restrict certain types of businesses, and you don't want a surprise after you're signing the lease. Avoid locking into a lease before you're ready. Make sure your financing permits and timeline are clear first. Signing too soon can lead to unnecessary costs. And insurance. Some of the common insurances that we work with are the general liability. This is the most common. Covers for small businesses. It protects you if someone gets hurt on your property or if your business causes damage to someone else's property. Workers' compensation, if you have employees. Workers' comp is usually required by law. It covers medical expenses and lost wages if an employee gets hurt or injured on the job. Health insurance, if you plan to offer health benefits to employees or need coverage for yourself as a business owner, you're going to want to explore the group health plans or the marketplace options. And then we have auto and property insurance. If your business owns vehicles or property, you'll need coverage for accidents, theft, or damage. Even home-based businesses may need some additional property coverage. Key person insurance. This protects your business if a critical team member becomes unable to work due to illness or death. It can help keep the business afloat during difficult transition times. And I've talked with several insurance agents and uh, was cautioned on adding the term fully insured to any type of marketing. And they said it's a hard term to define. And these are licenses and permits that we'll talk through. We do try to debunk the myth of a universal business license. There's really no universal business license in Maine. Some municipalities refer to registering your business with them as getting a business license, but that's really just a local registration and a bit of a misnomer. Industry specific, each industry has specific requirements. Maine Business Answers is a great resource. It helps you identify what licenses or permits your specific business might need. And your timing matters with this licensing too, because some licenses take longer than others. For example, a liquor license could take months to process. So plan early. And if your business requires specialized permits, you want to get started. And while talking about licenses and permits, I like to mention the Maine Business Answers is an online resource that helps you figure out what licenses and permits your business might need. It's a starting point because requirements vary by industry. Some businesses might need multiple licenses where others may not use any permits. Using this tool early can save time and prevent surprises later. And I typically, when I'm using this, is I'll oftentimes email right there, and they'll come back with an agent name or a phone number, and then I try to work with that. that person directly, and it's been a great help on sorting through some of those. Also, the Maine.gov business licensing webpage is another helpful resource. For a few business owners, it provides guidance on what type of license and permits you might need based on your industry or location. Using the site early in your planning can help you avoid delays. Financing, this show me the money. How much money do you need? Uh, that's a big question, and we'll help you work through that. How much is it going to cost to open the doors, and where will that money come from? This is what we call sources and use funds. Source includes your savings, loans, grants, investors. Uses includes equipment, inventory, marketing, and working capital. Undercapitalizations is one of the biggest reasons businesses fail early, unfortunately. It's on undercapitalization, starting without enough money. Financing isn't just about getting funds, it's about planning realistically. Your cash flow projection is your reality check. Cash flow projections help you see if your business idea is financially feasible. They guide decisions on pricing, hiring, purchasing, budgeting. They also show lenders and investors you've done your homework. Practical tips: don't rely on your gut feelings. Use numbers, build projections based on reasonable assumptions. Plan for seasonality and unexpected expenses. If you are unsure, work with an advisor or an accountant to make sure your projections are solid. Important numbers to determine and understand sources and uses of funds, aka how much money do you need to open? Where is it coming from? The cash flow projections are a true reality check of feasibility by actually looking at reasonable assumed numbers and not just trusting your gut. So typically with a client, we would work through each of these numbers and build assumptions and projections to help you understand where things are going to be on day one. And even as you can see, towards the end of the year, it'll help you project where your cash flow is going to be. So it's a really useful tool. Taxes, everybody's favorite, right? We have the different types of taxes you might need to pay. As a business owner, you could be responsible for several types of taxes. And income tax is paid annually based on your income. Self-employment tax covers your Social Security and Medicare for sole proprietors and partners, typically paid quarterly. Payroll taxes, if you have employees, you'll need to withhold and remit taxes for wages. Your sales tax, if you sell taxable goods or services, you must collect and remit sales tax to the state. Budgeting for taxes, you're going to want to plan ahead and set aside funds. A good rule of thumb is to save about 30% of your income for self-employment taxes. Also keep any collected sales tax in a separate account so you don't accidentally spend it. And it's always wise to hire a professional. Taxes can be complicated. They can get complicated quickly. I strongly recommend hiring a CPA to handle your income tax filings and advise you on compliance. It's an investment that can save money and stress. Do you need an attorney? When to consider hiring an attorney? There are several situations where legal advice is highly recommended. Choosing a legal entity, deciding between an LLC, a partnership, or a corporation has long-term implications for liability and taxes, as we previously discussed. An attorney can help ensure your choice aligns with your goals and protect you legally. And preparing or signing legal binding documents. This includes leases, purchases, purchase agreements, partnership agreements, contracts with vendors or clients. These documents have complex terms that impact your rights and obligations. Registering a trademark or a patent, protect your intellectual property is critical for branding and innovation. These processes can be complicated and costly if done incorrectly. So professional guidance is essential. Why it matters. Legal mistakes can be expensive. It's hard to fix later. Spend a little upfront for professional advice can save you thousands down the road. And as the slide shows, you're always going to be weighing your risk versus your profit on this. And your tax IDs. What is an EIN? An EIN stands for Employer Identification Number. It's also called a tax ID number. Think of it as a social security number for your business. It's used by the IRS to identify your business for tax purposes. Do you need one? If you have employees, you definitely need an EIN. Most businesses also get one, even if not required, because it helps separate your personal and your business finances. Sole proprietors without employees may not need one, but it's often recommended. EINs are free through the IRS. You don't have to pay a third party to get one. You can apply online at irs.gov, and any of the SBDC advisors will be able to help you pretty quickly with that. And the closing tip is to get an EIN is quick and easy. It just takes a few minutes online. Hiring employees. And we run into this question quite a bit is employees versus independent contractors. So you're going to have to understand the difference between a W-2 employee and a 1099 independent contractor because misclassifying can lead to penalties. Employees typically work under your control and follow your schedule while contractors operate independently. And rules to follow for employees, if you hire employees, you must comply with laws including earned paid leave, minimum wage requirements, posting required labor notices, workers' compensation insurance, workplace safety standards, policy manuals. Consider creating a policy employee handbook or policy manual. It sets clear expectations online, procedures, and helps protect your business legally. Best practices for managing payroll use a reliable payroll system to ensure accurate tax withholdings, timely payments, and compliance with state and federal regulations. Scheduling, you got to plan for your staffing carefully based on your industry needs. For example, a childcare business must meet state mandate ratios. Restaurants often use staffing charts to ensure coverage during peak hours. And the grand opening. We, we often recommend that you would have a soft opening at first because that would allow you to test and train your staff and work out any issues before the big day. It helps to reduce stress and ensures a smoother experience for customers. And tips for a successful grand opening would be to promote the event through social media, email, local advertising, connect with municipalities, neighbors, notify local officials, neighboring businesses. This builds goodwill and community support. Get press coverage. Send a press release to the local newspaper, radio stations, and online news outlets. Make it special. Offer giveaways, games, prizes, or free samples to attract attention and create excitement. Prepare for high demand. Ensure you have enough staff, inventory, and systems in place to handle a surge of customers during this event. And your grand opening is your first impression. You're going to want to make it memorable, but keep it manageable. And as a reminder, we often encounter this as business advisors. We made it through the checklist, and I just wanted to add that the time and the cost can catch you off guard. You'll want to allocate sufficient time and resources to ensure success for your business and your grand opening too. And this is the best place to connect with us if you'd like to register for advising. You visit that website, and then you just want to request advising. And then that will go to our state office where they would dispatch that to one of us advisors to reach out to you with next steps. That does conclude our slide presentation today. And encourage anybody to connect with the Maine SBDC if you have any questions for personal advising. That's what we really specialize in. And we're going to start taking some questions now. Don't want to forget that we are well represented on social media. My personal favorite is the YouTube channel. I like to go and watch some of these webinars that have taken place when I wasn't available to attend personally. And with that, we're going to start taking some questions. So I know Pete is online with the questions. I want to see if anybody wants to open their mic or if Pete wanted to read some questions that are in the chat.
We actually don't have, oh, never mind. We do have one. So wondering if there is a list of recommended accountants and lawyers. I don't know if you want to take this one. You want me to take this one?
Yeah, we can both. My experience with that is that we do collect a list of professionals that we have had good feedback from our clients. And then when somebody does ask for that type of help, that we can provide that list to them, from what I understand. That's what I've done.
Yep. Yeah. So as a federally funded program, we would give you at least three recommendations for either source there. But we do collect, as Dan said, clients who give us feedback. Hey, I'm using this person. I'm happy with their service or whatnot. We put them on a list so that we kind of know they're small business friendly if one of our clients is already working with them. So we can kind of give you a list that's a little more catered. I will say right now, accountants are very hard to get a hold of, just because we're getting into the tax season. So if you haven't got an accountant yet and you feel like you need one, then I would start that search sooner than later. Don't save that to the end. All right, we had another question. Where can we source list of business grants? So common question for funding is business grants. And for-profit businesses, to be honest, there aren't too many grants. I will put in the link. The Women's Business Center gets a lot of these business grant questions, and they have taken on themselves to update a catalog, if you will, of potential grants that a business could apply for. So if you go to the Women's Business Development Center, Women's Business Center, when they're hosted by CEI, they have a business grant Bible, so to say. So I will put that link for the people who are on live. I'll put that link in the meeting chat. But if you're watching this on YouTube, again, the Women's Business Center has a grant guide that they've developed for Maine businesses. Then I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Dan.
I use the same guide frequently, so I think that answers that very well.
Yeah. We had a couple more questions in the chat. Where can we find additional information on business funding? If you want to take that one while I get the link on the
Sure.
guide.
Yeah, so business funding, you want to connect certainly with an SBDC advisor and work through that. We do work with the SBA, so there's funding opportunities through the SBA. I also work with NMDC. There's funding opportunities there. Um, you could work with a traditional bank, and the SBDC can help you prepare for any of those funding opportunities. That's a big part of our job is to help you prepare for that.
Yeah, there's most people think funding, traditional funding with a bank, like Dan said, there's a lot of other different opportunities for funding out there. That's part of why people come to see us is sometimes you need more than a bank to help with the deal. The bank will only cover so much. So how do you get the other funding? But most of the time, the bank or anyone else is going to want you to put your own funds into the deal. So most of the time when you start a business, it is not, hey, give me a whole bunch of money and take a risk on me. They're going to want you to take a risk as well. And that risk manifests itself in you putting your own money into the business. Um, Have any of the current or future biz owners here done primary research? If so, wondering which method you choose. Not sure I trust the feedback would get from it. Should I prioritize this? And this is the primary versus secondary research.
Hmm. Yeah, so I did when I opened my business, I did primary research. I opened a business that would serve clients that needed auto glass and also needed renovations. And so I took a segment of that market, and I would talk to folks in doing the job now and kind of observe them and then talk to their clients. I was in a position where I could talk to some of their clients and see, how long are you waiting for your appointments? Are you happy with the service that you're getting? Would you be happier with a mobile service versus visiting that business directly? And so I was able to pick up some information that way, just talking to them personally, and it really helped. I when I opened my business, I had an understanding of what a lot of these clients were looking for on day one. So I found it helpful, and I'd be curious to see if anybody else did.
Yeah, any client I have that comes in who is going to set up any kind of storefront or retail or anything like that, I almost always tell them for primary research, which is, your direct area, not research you can find on the internet necessarily. You should go to your competitors, see how they're marketing, go to them different times of the day, see how many clients are coming in, see what their menus look like. Um, you can get a lot of information about your market and about the projections you're doing, right? Sometimes we might overshoot our projections, but if we go to our nearest competitor and they have half the traffic and they've been in business for 5 years, then we know maybe our projections are a little high. So the primary research I actually trust sometimes more than the secondary research because the primary is really catered towards my specific industry and my specific region. Whereas secondary is kind of like when you go online and you do a Google search for your industry. That's a little too broad sometimes and doesn't really capture the immediate market. Um, let's see. CEI stands for Coastal Enterprise Incorporated. for the Women's Business Center. They're a large organization that covers the state of Maine. They're actually one of the funding sources that we might talk about during one of our sessions because they do have the ability to loan to businesses for a slightly higher interest rate than a bank, but they're taking on more risk. Other support associations around the state, the CI does have business advisors if you fit within a certain criteria for them. So they certainly have some advising that you could get. SCORE, which is the Service Corps of Retired. Well, actually, they're not even that anymore. They're just SCORE. Just SCORE. Um,
Mhm.
SCORE offers a lot of business support, and oftentimes they pair very well with our services because we're very much broad. Anyone that comes in Dan or my door, whether it be a surfboard manufacturer to a hotel to a restaurant, right? We have to be able to help them. So we often run the gamut of different things. So we're generalists on quite a bit of information, but SCORE, we pair well with them because they have, experts who are volunteering who might have run a restaurant before. So I can tell you all about financials and restaurants and secondary information, but they have that primary research of actually having run that type of business. So oftentimes we can work together to help you form a good idea on the feasibility of your business. Definitely recommend them. Um, last question, so far, do we have a standard checklist for what is needed to convert from a sole proprietor, already established sole proprietor, to an LLC? Um, I don't know if we have a standard checklist as much as we have good guidance on what to think of and what to do. What do you say, Dan?
I have not seen the checklist, but I have helped people make that transition, and
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't too complicated.
No,
So,
very, very common transition. I
mhm,
think one of the reasons there isn't a checklist is it really depends on what you've done already and what you haven't done. Um,
mhm.
and what industry you're in because there's oftentimes with clients, one question leads to 20 more questions. So
Right.
rather than send a checklist, which sometimes will definitely let you check off something on the checklist, but sometimes the real question is why are we going to do this? And we want to just make sure we got the intent correct as well to match it up. Good questions, people.
Excellent.
Yes. And I always tell people, there's always a question of how much does this cost? Well, it's taxpayer funded, so there's no additional money. It's a prepaid service. Think of it that way. So your tax money, this is what it goes towards to help businesses both start up and run. So as you get into business, let's say you don't need any more help from us now, or you don't think you do. As you're running your
Mhm.
business, you're going to come up with a whole new host of questions that come up. So please think of us through the life of your business. Any more questions? We got 15 minutes. Don't be shy. What could we expect with our advisors in personal meetings, emails, weekly or monthly? You want to take that, Dan?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to what the client needs, right? That's a great question. A lot of people ask because there's no additional fee. It's all we're prepaid, like Pete had mentioned. So some of my clients, when they're working through their financials, sometimes we'll meet every other day or every week, and then after their grand opening, sometimes we'll meet monthly, and you know, and then sometimes I've met people, who want to grow their business after they've been in operations for 5 years and they seem to be going well. They want to hire some more employees. Actually, one of the big ones was hiring the first employee and just working through that transition of hiring the first employee. Some people need some help with that. And so it depends on your business and how much help you would want. And, we're always available to help you at any stage of the business. I've been able to help some people even involved in selling their business. So towards the end of their business, they wanted some help to line things up, and that's been helpful that way. Um, so again, it just really depends on the client, how often they would like to schedule.
And the big thing I tell my clients is we can meet as often as needed to get whatever the task is that's done. But that's really the main point is there is a task that we're working on towards completion. It's not so much a meeting just to chit chat. It's a meeting to actually get something done. Um,
Mhm.
so some people I meet with more often, some people I meet with once and they're good to go. The question was answered. So it really depends. All of us are friendly though, so that's a bonus. And we do email, Zoom, phone, or in-person meetings. And there's usually an office within a reasonable drive time of anywhere you might live in Maine. We got, I am about 45 to 50% done with my business plan, but coming up on the financial section, which is hefty. That is, Dan can probably back me up. That's probably the most
Absolutely.
help we offer is the financial section. Do you recommend I attempt to start this part myself first or meet with an advisor before beginning financial projections? Wondering because this is my first time doing a business plan and this part seems complicated.
Yeah, I would certainly recommend signing up for a business advisor, and then they can help you through that business plan. We really do this every day of the week.
Yep.
And then, like I had mentioned, as far as the financials go, sometimes, to that previous question is how often do you meet? When my clients are working through their financials, we meet the most often. And, we'll share screens on Zoom, or sometimes they'll come into my office and we'll work through those financials. So I would recommend connecting with a business advisor and then, working at your pace through those sessions.
And part of what we do as business advisors is not to do it for you. We do it with you because it's more important to us that you all understand your own businesses because we're not going to be there all the time, right? When a decision comes or you're signing a loan for a bank, you're the one that's going to be signing the loan, not us. So we want to make sure that you are comfortable with the numbers that you're coming up with and that we're not putting words in your mouth, right? So financial projections definitely are something we try to work together on. If usually with my clients, if you take a stab at financial projections, that's great because that kind of lets me know how you're thinking about. But that leads to a whole conversation of how do you think you're going to earn money with this business? Because it might have been simple in your mind, right, when you first come in, like, oh, I'm going to have people pay to attend. But then we might talk about memberships or annual fees versus monthly fees or anything like that. So that might lead to a whole conversation. But usually having something prepped first, kind of like a rough idea, that's usually good, and then we can work from there. We got another question here. Um, Starting a flower farm and learning um, future workshops. Might add a nursery license in the future. Which code category should I choose for the flower farm? Are you talking like a NAICS code or what code are you talking about? And pretty specific questions. So what might be better than trying to find that code here on this webinar is just email us. If you look at I'll actually turn on my video real quick. You can email either I or Dan, and just kind of flesh out what that question is. That seems like a very specific question to your industry. My email is right here, peter.hammer@maine.edu, or Dan's. At the end of this email, I think you're going to get or at the end of this webinar, you'll get a email from the SBDC when we kind of conclude it and send you the link, but that might take a little while. All right, thanks. Okay, other questions?
These are some great questions, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get people saying, they're all jacked up and prepared for that first year, right? They're very excited to start the business. from a psychological standpoint, I always tell my clients this when they're first starting a business. It's not year one that is really the toughest. It seems like it is because you're starting something new, but that's you kind of have like this excitement and you already built this mental tough armor to bear out that first year. It's year three that's the toughest, is really what I find. And that's because, you're going at it. The end of year three is usually where things start picking up, right? But up until then, you've had to really explain who you were and what you were doing a lot of the times because your brand's not there. You just started a business, it's just picking up. And you got to really decide, from a statistical standpoint, if you're going to stay in it or not. And statistically, it's a 50-50 if you survive that year three. So great that you have that ambition, but part of why we're here, the SBDC, is to make sure you do survive that year three. Right? We did a survey way back when on survivability, and you were more likely if you got SBDC help, and especially if you paired that with other help like SCORE, you were more likely to survive that year three. More questions that come on, so I'm gonna cut that short. And is there a place that you recommend finding our secondary source marketing research, like certain government university sites? Um, yeah, I mean, we could pull a report for you from either SBDC Net or Vertical IQ, an industry report. Usually, kind of like what that flower code was talking about, I believe, though we're going to get an email from them, is you can get what's called a NAICS code, or industry code, and you can Google search your industry code, and oftentimes there's a lot of research that's been done by your industry. However, a lot of that research is paid for research, so you might have a paywall before you get to that research. Otherwise, you could go to an association, like if there's an association, a national one or a local one, they often will gather information for their members, and that information could be, how things are going, what the trends are. Any other ideas, Dan?
Yeah, I've reached out to the Office of Tourism a number of times to keep track of the traffic in the different towns, and
Yeah.
um, the counties oftentimes keep some economic information as well that you can tap into, and Maine.gov has some information you can get there too. They take you off site to help you find some of those websites that are available based on your industry.
Yeah. And if you have a physical location, the Department of Transportation actually does a survey on the road, on the cars that go down each road, right? The busier the road, the more often they do the survey. But so if you're thinking about, hey, this seems like a good location, you can actually plug in the address and figure out how many cars drive by every day. That will tell you how big you need the sign to be, right? Um, Speaking of a physical location, a question came in of having a hard time finding a physical location. Are there resources that help find a spot? Um, I mean, other than website resources, like one of mine, and Dan, you can tell yours. One of mine is LoopNet, has some pretty good spots. Maine has a commercial listings uh, site as well. I'm trying to remember what it's called. But to be honest, sometimes it is worthwhile to contact a realtor, a commercial realtor, and just give them contact them, tell them what you're looking for, and they're going to have access or be able to put a search out there, or they might even know off the top of their heads because that's what they do for their job, right? Dan, what would you add to that?
I think you nailed it. I would use those same things, and something that's been working. We're a little more remote in my neck of the woods, and so entrepreneurs have had a fairly successful attempts going to the city. And so there's an economic development in each of these city resources as well. And so they were able to find some place to rent typically, or even buildings that are for sale. They would have an idea of what was going on in that city.
See, I'm just getting the links here.
Okay,
I'm putting the link to LoopNet, which is one of my favorites, and then
excellent. Yeah.
and also the commercial Maine about 6 years ago set up a Maine commercial real estate. I thought they did. I'm going to try to find it for this group here, where you could list. Not really finding it too much yet, but I think this is it. I'm going to put that in the search too. It's NECPE. New England is stands for New England Commercial Property.com. I'll put that link as well. But so that's one of the warnings for people with retail spaces. While the commercial property is not as hot a market as a residential property, so it's a little cooler. But what I find is sometimes people fall in love with the spot, but they really need to do the numbers to make sure that spot is going to be affordable, right? Because what we don't want you to do is move in, love the spot, good spot. I'm not saying the spot isn't good, but the rent is too high or the lease is too high, and you end up not able to do it, not able to make money. So you got to both love the spot and find one that's affordable with the projections and the budget that you have. So again, a good thing to do is talk to a realtor, understand what the typical square footage is, and they can usually give you kind of a range in different areas, and that might tell you where you might want to look. So if your ideal location might be 2,000 square feet, and they tell you, well, Portland's this much usually, or downtown Portland's this much usually, that might put you out of downtown Portland. You might say, okay, I'm more going to look, I guess, in Scarborough, or more going to look in Gray or Wyndham. So that can help narrow your search as well. Other questions? We got T minus 3 minutes. So anyone on here, I'm guaranteeing that if you have a question percolating in your mind that isn't specific just to you, a general question, if it's in your mind, it's probably in someone else's mind as well. So feel free to exercise that um, as you see fit. Um, as we're
Any
waiting
questions
here.
come?
Oh, well, there we go.
Excellent.
How do you approach your community for primary research? Knocking on doors? Well, it depends on what you're planning on opening. Um, if there is a competitor shopping, right? Secret shopping is definitely a thing you can do. If it's a new service to the area, then it might be knocking on doors. There's a great story. One of my colleagues had a client who was doing a board game, right? And so to get feedback, it was a very quick one, not an elaborate one. To get feedback, they would just go to places where people were naturally waiting, like an airport or a bus stop or anything like that. And they'd strike up conversations and get them to play and figure out some feedback right there. Kind of a unique approach, but yeah. So primary research could be if you're a food-based business, could be going and having samples of your food somewhere and then getting feedback from the people. If it's a product like you're creating a tool for handymen, it could be going to your local Hancock Lumber and seeing if they have contractors that might be able to try your tool out and give them some feedback on what it was like to use the tool. Um, those type of brainstorming sessions to try to figure out, hey, how can we get more information
Hmm.
that's pertinent? We do those kind of sessions all the time as well. Sometimes we have good ideas, sometimes bad ideas, but it's sometimes two heads are better than one, right? So just kind of coming in and figuring out what might work and what might not work. Yeah. And what to ask. Sometimes sometimes curating it so it's a survey that actually gets you, you know, unbiased results or stuff like that is good too. All right, so we are at 11 o'clock.
Okay. Yeah, so everybody will be receiving the slide deck via email, and you'll have opportunity to connect with SBDC advisor. And I really appreciate everybody's attendance and all these wonderful questions. And thank you for everybody in attendance.